I had just finished sealing the last container when my phone buzzed on the counter. I packed it beside the rice I made that morning, making sure nothing would spill during the trip. I zipped the suitcase slowly, almost with pride, because I truly thought she would smile when she saw what I brought. Instead, her message cut through me like cold air in a dark room. "Stop trying to come over. You're being selfish." I read those words twice, maybe 3 times, hoping I was wrong. My finger trembled as I held the phone. Selfish. She used that word like I was trying to take something from her. All I wanted was to visit my own daughter and bring her the meals she used to ask for every birthday. I stood there in the middle of my small kitchen, looking at the suitcase as if it had suddenly become something shameful. I tried calling her, thinking maybe I misunderstood. The call rang once, then went straight to voicemail. That hurt more than the message. I set the phone down and steadied myself on the chair. At my age, moments like that hit harder. The world doesn't cushion blows the way it used to. I felt my chest tighten as the room stayed painfully quiet. I tried to understand what I had done wrong. Last week, she said she was busy. The week before that, she didn't pick up either. For months now, she had been drifting away, speaking to me like I was an obligation instead of a father. I kept telling myself she was stressed or tired. But reading that word, selfish, made something break inside me, like a thread that had been pulled too tight for too long. I looked down at my hands. They aren't as steady as they used to be. The knuckles stay swollen these days, and lifting heavy pots takes a little more effort. But I cooked everything myself, made every dish she grew up loving. I thought it would remind her of home, of comfort, of the bond we used to have. Instead, it reminded me of how far she had gone. A part of me knew this wasn't only about a visit. Her tone had been cold for a while, distant in ways I tried hard not to see. Every message from her felt shorter, sharper, like she was pushing me back without saying it directly. Now she finally had. I placed my hand on the suitcase, feeling its weight. It wasn't just food inside. It was love, time, memories, and effort. Things she didn't even want to look at. I whispered to no one. "Selfish for wanting to see my own child. If someone spoke to you like that, would you still try to visit?" I noticed it months before the message she sent me that morning, though I kept telling myself it was nothing. Little changes, small pauses, a colder tone slipping into her voice each time we spoke. At first, I thought she was just tired from work. She used to call me every Sunday, asking if I'd eaten or if I needed help picking up my prescriptions. Then the calls stopped. I tried calling her instead, but the phone would ring until it grew quiet in my ear. No answer, no call back, just silence. I remember one afternoon when I drove by her place, because I was already in the area. I didn't plan to walk in. I only wanted to see if she was doing well. Her partner stepped outside before I even reached the door. He looked at me like I was a stranger who had wandered somewhere I didn't belong. His voice didn't match the words he used, polite on the surface, dismissive underneath. "She's busy," he said, not moving aside. "Next time, call first." He didn't need to say more. The door closing behind him said everything. I stood there on the porch for a few seconds longer than I should have. The sun was still up, but the light felt dimmer somehow. That was the moment I first felt it. A wall I didn't know how to climb, built one brick at a time between me and my only child. I tried again the next week. I called her early in the morning, thinking she might have a moment before work. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted her, asking if she needed anything. Hours passed. Nothing. I sent another message, this time telling her I missed her. Still nothing. When she finally replied, it was just 2 words. "I'm fine." Those 2 words carried a weight I didn't expect. There was no warmth, no softness, none of the daughter I raised. It felt like she was holding me at arm's length, and I didn't know why. I kept replaying our last real conversation, searching for something I might have said wrong, some mistake I didn't notice. It wasn't only the silence that worried me. It was the tone in her partner's voice whenever I heard him in the background. Sometimes I'd catch a sigh, or a muttered comment he didn't think I'd hear. Once, when I asked if they needed help with anything, I heard him whisper, "He's too involved." She didn't correct him. She didn't defend me. She just let the words hang there, heavy and sharp. There were other moments too. Small things that stung more than they should have. A canceled lunch, a forgotten birthday message, a change in her banking information she didn't tell me about, even though I used to help her manage her bills. She brushed it off, but something about the way her partner handled it made the back of my neck tighten. He spoke for her more and more, as if my daughter's voice was no longer hers alone. Every time she pulled away, I tried harder. I left her voicemails telling her I loved her, even when my voice wavered. I texted her pictures of old memories, hoping one would make her smile. Nothing worked. Each unanswered call chipped away at me until I began to fear that whatever was taking her from me was stronger than my attempts to hold on. That fear sits heavy in a parent's chest. It changes the way you breathe. Have you ever felt pushed out of your own child's life? I decided to try again a week after her message, even though my chest still felt tight whenever I thought about it. I told myself she might have been stressed, that maybe seeing me in person would soften whatever had hardened between us. I reheated the soup I made earlier and packed it carefully into the same suitcase I'd kept by the door. Carrying it to the car took more effort than it used to, but I managed. A father should never feel afraid to visit his own child. The drive to her place felt longer than usual. My hands tightened on the steering wheel each time I thought about her words. Still, I kept going. I told myself that love sometimes needed patience, even when it hurt. By the time I parked outside her building, my heartbeat was louder than the traffic behind me. I walked to her door with the suitcase rolling behind me, its small wheels tapping against the concrete like a reminder of why I came. I knocked gently at first. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. I heard footsteps inside, a whisper, and then the door opened only a crack. Her partner stood there, filling the doorway with the same expression he had the last time. Calm but cold, like he had already decided the conversation was over before it even began. "She's resting," he said. "You should have called." "I did," I answered. "She didn't pick up." He shrugged, keeping his hand on the door like he feared I might push past him. "She's overwhelmed. Today isn't a good day." "I brought her favorite meals," I said, trying to lift the suitcase a little. "Just 10 minutes. I just want to say hello." His eyes flicked to the suitcase, then back to me, and something about the look made the back of my neck prickle. It wasn't concern. It wasn't care. It was annoyance. At me, at the effort I made, at the love I still carried for my daughter. "She doesn't need that," he said flatly. "We're managing fine." Managing fine? That phrase dug into me. I leaned slightly to the side, trying to catch even a glimpse of her. Maybe a shadow. Maybe a sign she was okay. Instead, I saw a stack of unopened mail sitting on a small table in the entryway. The top envelope had my name on it, one I'd mailed her months ago. She never opened it. She never even bothered to bring it inside properly. My chest tightened again. "Please," I whispered. "I won't stay long." He didn't move. He didn't soften. He only shook his head once, slow and firm. "Not today." The door shut before I could say anything else. I stood there in the hallway, still holding the suitcase handle, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. Through the door, I heard muted voices. His voice first, then hers. She didn't come out. She didn't even ask who was there. That hurt more than anything he said. I turned back toward the elevator, dragging the suitcase behind me. Its weight felt different now, heavier, almost painful. I was pulling a part of myself that she no longer wanted. When I reached my car, I opened the trunk and stared at the suitcase for a long moment. I closed it again without touching it. The drive home was quiet, but my thoughts weren't. Something wasn't right. Her distance wasn't just emotional anymore. It felt guided, shaped, pushed by someone who wanted me out of her life. And for the first time, confusion turned into suspicion. Would you turn away a parent who brought love in the form of food? I didn't plan to look through my accounts that night. I only wanted to calm my mind after the visit that never happened. But when I opened the drawer where I kept my important papers, something felt off. The folder I always kept in the back, my bank statements, insurance files, and savings documents, wasn't sitting the way I left it. It was pushed forward, slightly open, as if someone had gone through it in a hurry. My hands tightened as I pulled it out. I sat at the table and spread the papers in front of me. The numbers looked familiar at first, steady and predictable, the way they had been for years. But then one line caught my eye, an ATM withdrawal I didn't make, then another, and another. Small amounts, but frequent, spaced out over weeks. My heart sank. I rarely used cash anymore, and when I did, I remembered every dollar. I turned the page and felt my breath stop. Someone had updated the contact information on my online banking profile. The phone number was not mine. The email wasn't mine either. I stared at those lines, feeling something inside me freeze. It was the kind of change someone made when they wanted alerts and statements to go to them instead of me. At first, I refused to believe it. Maybe it was an error. Maybe the bank made a mistake. But the longer I stared, the more a cold truth crept in. This wasn't an accident. Someone had accessed my account and changed things behind my back. I thought of my daughter. Then I thought of her partner, standing in the doorway, blocking me, speaking for her, speaking over her. The memory made my stomach twist. The missing mail at her house, the unopened envelope with my handwriting. All the small signs I ignored because I didn't want to see what they meant. I took the folder with me to the bank the next morning. The teller took one look and called a financial advisor to speak with me privately. She sat across from me, her voice calm but firm as she flipped through the pages. "These changes weren't made from your usual device," she said. "And the withdrawals, they're patterned." She paused before adding, "It's common in elder exploitation cases." Those words hit me harder than any closed door ever had. "Are you saying someone close to me did this?" I asked, though a part of me already knew the answer. She didn't point fingers. She didn't have to. "Do you have anyone who recently gained access to your personal documents? Anyone who might know your PIN or have been near your banking information?" Images flashed through my mind. My daughter stopping by months ago, her partner wandering around the house while she and I talked, the way he asked casual questions about my bills and how I organized things. At the time, it felt like polite conversation. Now it felt like something else. A heaviness settled in my chest. I loved my daughter. I always would. But love didn't erase facts. Love didn't fill missing account lines or change contact information without permission. Love didn't explain why her partner acted like I was in the way. I left the bank with a stack of papers, a temporary freeze on my account, and a suggestion to seek legal advice. Walking to my car, I felt older than I had in years. Not because of age, because of betrayal. Because of fear I tried to ignore. Because part of me still hoped I was wrong. But another part, the one that had been pushed aside for too long, whispered that I wasn't. Should children ever have access to their parents' accounts without consent? I sat in the lawyer's office with my folder clutched so tightly in my hands that the edges bent under my fingers. The room was quiet, too quiet, and the clock on the wall seemed to tick louder with every second. The lawyer, an elder abuse specialist recommended by the bank, read through my documents with a slow, careful focus. I watched her eyes move across each page, waiting for something, anything, that would tell me I was mistaken. But her expression grew heavier the longer she read. When she finally looked up, her voice was calm, but carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. "These withdrawals aren't random. They follow a pattern we see often in financial exploitation cases." She tapped the altered contact information. "This wasn't a bank error. Someone logged in using authentication linked to your daughter's address." I felt something inside me collapse. I had feared it, suspected it, but hearing it confirmed made my chest burn. "Are you saying my own child changed my banking access?" She didn't say the word yes, but the silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. She slid another paper forward, one I hadn't noticed before. "This is a copy of your last authorized signature form. It was recently updated." The moment my eyes landed on the signature line, the room seemed to tilt. The signature wasn't mine. The loops were too wide, the slant too sharp. Whoever forged it didn't even try to match the smaller marks I made with my weaker hand. My breath caught as I stared at it, feeling a kind of fury rise that I didn't know I had. "That's not my handwriting," I whispered. "I never signed that." She nodded. "I already thought so. I compared it to the signature on your original file." She placed both pages side by side. The differences were obvious, painfully obvious. I looked away for a moment, pressing my hand against my forehead. My daughter had been distant, dismissive, cold. But this was different. This was calculated. This was a plan, and I could feel her partner's fingerprints all over it. His tone, his control, the way he answered for her, the way he shut doors in my face. The lawyer leaned forward slightly. "I know this is incredibly painful, but you need to understand, this is illegal. Forgery, unauthorized access, identity misuse, these are serious offenses." She spoke with a steadiness that made it clear she'd handled many cases like mine, but she gave me space to absorb the blow. I felt the devastation like a weight pressing into my spine. My own child, my little girl, someone I taught to tie her shoes, someone I walked to school, someone I cooked for all her life. And now, this. "What happens next?" I asked, though my voice felt small. "We file a formal complaint," she said. "The bank will cooperate with the investigation. Law enforcement will review the forgery and access logs. And given the evidence, She paused gently. We can request a restraining order if you feel unsafe or threatened. Unsafe, threatened. Words I never imagined would apply to my relationship with my own daughter. The thought made my stomach twist. She slid one final form toward me. This begins the process. Once you sign, the investigation moves forward. I held the pen for several seconds before I could bring myself to move. Signing that paper felt like signing away the last piece of the world I once knew. But I wasn't just protecting money. I was protecting myself from someone who no longer saw me as family, but as a resource to take from. When the pen finally touched the page, a cold determination settled in me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth. I wanted justice. I wanted my dignity back. Would you press charges if this was your child? I waited until the investigation paperwork was officially filed before I went to see them. I didn't trust myself to speak without proof in my hand. I carried the folder with a forged signature, the printed bank logs, and the notes from the lawyer. My hands shook as I walked up the same steps where I had once stood with hope. This time, there was none, only truth and the weight of what they had done. She opened the door halfway, surprise flickering in her eyes before she masked it with indifference. Her partner hovered behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. I could feel the hostility before either of them spoke. "I need to talk to both of you," I said, my voice steady in a way I didn't expect. "It can't wait." Her partner stepped forward like he owned the doorway. "Now isn't a good..." I held up the forged signature. "This is yours, isn't it?" I pointed directly at the handwriting, because it sure as hell isn't mine. My daughter's face drained of color. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the truth flash across her expression. Fear, recognition, guilt. But then her partner nudged her shoulder, and her jaw hardened. "You must be confused, Dad," she said, her voice stiff. "You probably forgot signing it." "I may be old," I replied, "but I'm not stupid, and I'm not blind." I placed the papers in her hand. I saw the access logs. I saw the contact changes. Everything points to this house. Her partner snatched the papers away, flipping through them with a mocking laugh. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. We were helping you manage things because you clearly can't keep up anymore." The rage that rose in me wasn't loud. It was silent, tight, controlled, like a rope pulling hard inside my chest. "Helping me," I said quietly. "You were stealing from me. You forged my name." He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if trying to intimidate me. "You can't prove who did it. Anyone could have gotten hold of your papers. That's exactly what the police will determine." His face twitched. Before either of them could respond, 2 officers approached from the sidewalk. I had asked the detective if I could come with them, not for drama, but because I needed them to see this moment, needed them to know I wasn't afraid anymore. The officers introduced themselves, calm and professional, and asked to speak with my daughter and her partner. Her partner's confidence cracked. "Why are the police here?" "Because identity misuse and forgery are crimes," one officer said, "and we need statements from both of you." My daughter looked at me then. Really looked, not with love, not with regret, with anger that I had dared to protect myself. She muttered, "I can't believe you do this to me." Hearing that hurt more than anything on those papers. "You did this to yourself," I said softly. I just finally stopped pretending I didn't see it. As the officers took them aside, asking questions, reading their rights, I felt a strange mix inside me. Vindication wrapped in heartbreak. I never wanted justice to come to this. But justice had finally stepped forward, even if my daughter wanted to step away. When they realized they were in real legal trouble, the blame shifting started, fast and desperate. Her partner said she pushed him. She said he did everything. They didn't defend each other. They only tried to save themselves. I turned away from their voices and walked down the path with the slow, heavy steps of a man who had lost something he could never get back. Not money, not documents, a bond. But I also felt something new, resolve. I wasn't done. I would see this through. Do you think their reaction shows guilt? The courthouse hallway felt colder than the outside air, even though the heating was on. I sat beside my attorney while people moved past us. Lawyers with heavy files, officers speaking in low voices, families waiting for their own painful stories to be heard. My attorney placed her hand on the folder between us and said softly, "Today is when everything becomes official. The charges are clear, Mr. Turner. Elder abuse, financial exploitation, forgery, identity misuse. The court won't take this lightly." Hearing those words lined up like that made my stomach tighten. They were ugly words, criminal words, and they were aimed at my own daughter and the man she tied her life to. For a moment, I closed my eyes and reminded myself why I was here, because the truth mattered, even when it tore me apart. When we entered the courtroom, they were already seated at the defense table. My daughter stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, avoiding my eyes. Her partner lounged back in his chair, pretending confidence, but his legs shook under the table. The sight of them like that, united in silence but crumbling inside, hurt in a way I can't fully explain. It was grief wrapped in something sharper. The judge began by reading the charges aloud. Hearing my name connected to the words victim and elder abuse case sent a chill through me. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was the state recognizing that what happened to me mattered, and that someone had to answer for it. My attorney presented the financial records first. The banker testified about the suspicious withdrawal patterns and the change in my contact information. She spoke clearly and firmly, explaining how these actions could only be done by someone with access to my personal details. Then, a handwriting analyst took the stand. He projected 2 signatures on a screen, my real one and the forged document. Even from my seat, the differences were undeniable. This signature was not written by the same individual, he stated. It shows hesitation marks and different pressure patterns typical of someone attempting imitation. Each fact landed like a stone, and with each one, I felt the truth tightening around them like a net they could no longer escape. The police officer who had taken my statement testified next. He described how shaken I was when I handed him the documents. Hearing someone else speak about my pain made me swallow hard. It's strange how humiliation feels heavier when spoken out loud. My daughter's attorney tried to argue confusion, that maybe she thought she had permission, that maybe I misremembered, but even she couldn't keep her voice steady. My daughter kept her arms crossed, face stiff, refusing to look at me. Her partner whispered to her again and again, but each whisper sounded more like panic than confidence. When the judge addressed them, his voice was firm. This case highlights the vulnerability of aging parents and the responsibility adult children have to safeguard, not exploit, their trust. These actions are serious. They show a clear pattern of intentional misuse. Intentional misuse. Hearing that word confirmed something deep inside me, that I wasn't imagining, exaggerating, or losing my mind. They did this knowing exactly what they were doing. The judge didn't finalize sentencing yet, but the courtroom felt the direction of the decision. He ordered restrictions, financial restitution reviews, and a no-contact order until the final hearing. It wasn't full justice yet, but it was the beginning. As I walked out, a strange mix filled me. Vindication that the truth was heard, and grief that the people responsible shared my blood. Do you think the punishment fits the crime? The final hearing came on a gray morning, the kind of day where the sky feels heavy enough to press against your shoulders. I sat in the same courtroom as before, my hands folded in my lap, listening as the judge delivered the sentence. My daughter received probation with mandatory restitution and financial oversight. Her partner faced a harsher penalty, several months in county jail, fraud education courses, and a long-term ban from accessing any vulnerable person's accounts. Their faces were blank when the judgment fell, as if they had already run out of emotions to hide behind. I didn't look at them for long. The weight of everything had already taken enough from me. When the judge dismissed the room, I felt something loosen inside me. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief in the bright, hopeful sense. It was something quieter, a slow unwinding of tension I'd held in my chest for far too long. Justice didn't erase the damage, but it acknowledged it, and that mattered more than I expected. That evening, when I came home, I walked to the hall closet. The suitcase was still there, tucked behind my winter coat, exactly where I left it on the day she shut her door in my face. I pulled it out and set it on the dining table. The zipper was cold under my fingers. I opened it slowly, almost cautiously, as if I were waking up a memory that had slept too long. Inside were the empty containers I had washed and stored after throwing away the spoiled meals weeks ago. They still carried faint traces of herbs and broth, reminders of how hopeful I'd been when I cooked them. I touched one container and felt a dull ache spread through me. Not sharp, not fresh, but the ache of something that finally had time to breathe. I realized then that the suitcase wasn't just an object. It was a symbol of every attempt I made to hold on to a relationship that was slipping away. I kept it because some part of me wanted to believe things could return to the way they were. But life had shown me a truth I could no longer unsee. I closed the suitcase and carried it to the back shed. I didn't throw it out. I didn't need to. Putting it away was its own kind of ending. Quiet, steady, final. I stood there for a long moment, letting the air settle around me. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for her call. I wasn't checking my phone for messages that never came. I wasn't rehearsing apologies for things I never did. I accepted that our relationship may never heal, and maybe it shouldn't. Dignity matters. Boundaries matter. A man deserves to live the years he has left without bending himself into the shape of someone else's convenience. I'm older now. I feel it in my knees, in my breath, in the quiet corners of the house. But I also feel something stronger. Self-worth, returning piece by piece. The pain doesn't vanish, but it becomes something I can hold without breaking. In the end, I kept my dignity, even if I lost my daughter. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. Would you forgive a child who treated you this way?